Hi everyone, it's Grant from Dome Music Technologies here, and this time round we're going to be having a look at the ACE Min-Max module. It's quite a simple module really. It takes up to 4 voltage inputs on each of these channels and gives you two outputs, one of which is the minimum value of all the input voltages and the other one is the maximum output of all the voltages. So just to demonstrate that, I'll just give the input voltages 1 to 4, just try different values on them. We've got them monitored on the voltmeter here and also on the multi-oscilloscope. So if I bump voltage 1 up to 1 volt, then you can see that the minimum channel has moved to channel 2. It reads through them from channel 1 to channel 4 in order and decides which is the lowest value that it met on that way through the 4 channels. Channel 1 is now the maximum output, so if we look at the value of min out, it's still at 0 volts, but max out has now gone to 1 volt, and similarly if we bump that up to 2 volts, then the same thing happens. Channel 1 is still the maximum output, but the max out is now reading a little over 2 volts there. So if we put this back down to 1 volt and instead put channel 2 up to 1.5 volts, you can see that channel 2 is now the maximum output and channel 3 is now the minimum output because both channel 1 and channel 2 have a greater than 0 voltage on them. Now we can put channel 4 into the negative range and suddenly it becomes the minimum voltage. Minimum output voltage is minus 0.85 volts and maximum output is 1.49. So it's quite a straightforward system really. It's quite easily understood, but what you can do is combine multiple changing inputs rather than static inputs. So just use these 4 square wave outputs and feed them into channels 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm just going to put a musical interval in here. So just forgive my lack of explanation for these values. You're just going to have to take it on faith. So you can see that the 4 output voltages here are now going up and down through various intervals. The minimum output is hardly changing because the only time it climbs above 0 volts is when the lowest voltage on the red trace here, 0.3335 volts, is being output. The maximum one is changing all the time, so it's going to the various input voltages over time, just depending on which happens to be the maximum at the time. So if we feed the maximum voltage into the pitch CV of the oscillator here, and we just play a note, so you're hearing a sort of arpeggio sequencer type pattern happening every time I press a note. What we can do, instead of me playing notes on the keyboard, is if we take the gate input and if we take the minimum output and feed it into the VX input of this compare module, and we set VY offset to something above 0 but less than 0.3335 volts, so I've got it set to 0.2, you can see that the overflow signal is getting triggered on a sort of an occasional basis. So if I just get that to trigger the envelope, and we start messing about with the rates of these LFOs. It's starting to get into chiptune territory. And if we change it to the triangle wave inputs, then weirder things start happening. So that pretty much sums up what the min-max module does. See you next time.